So yeah, my name's Pauline Iacono, and I'm the teacher director at Mittagong Preschool, and I've been an ECT for oh, I don't know, 30 years. I feel like I've been doing it since I was tiny, obviously by yeah. And I've been at Mittagong Preschool for some time. As I started first as a part-time teacher, and then I've gradually moved up into the directorship role. So yeah, and at the preschool here, we have 2 rooms, 40 children a day, and we really have worked very hard on quality improvement over the last few years. Well, first of all, when we first heard about it, before we even actually saw it, there was a feeling, and I guess I sort of had it too, but also amongst the staff when it was just being discussed with this star idea, that it was going to be a bit weird, maybe kitschy, maybe something we wouldn't really be excited to see involved with the preschool and connected with the preschool. But once we saw it, we saw that it is quite a striking document insofar as it is actually quite eye-catching. And I think it was only just the other day that I actually sort of just was filing through something and found our old certificate, and I realised just how much better it does look, and it really does catch your eye. And so it is, by its very design of it, I think it's a good conversation starter just in that alone. But like everyone else has said, when we first got it, I didn't do a lot with it because I felt like with the pandemic, I think that it seemed like a lot of these kind of things were very trivial in connection with all the big picture things that people were dealing with and all the discussions and decisions that we were having to have at that time. And so it really just wasn't really on anybody's radar. We just kind of saw it there, said, yes, well, we know that's what our rating is anyway. And it is something, our ratings have always been shared as part of annual reports on our website, and in different discussions, and within our QIP, of course, it comes up. So we kind of just was kind of like situation normal, just with a different poster. Yeah, I think well, I think first of all, seeing it was one way of kind of like starting to overcome that hurdle of, was it going to be a little bit like a hotel rating? So I think seeing it, I think also from the staff's viewpoint, as Susie mentioned, not seeing it as just another one of those things that, oh gosh, that's a new thing we have to do. And anyway, we were already doing all that, so why do we have to do it in a new, different way? And I think in an early conversation with Gloria, I actually mentioned that for the staff, I think something that helped us a bit was, I remember when we introduced the EYLF those years ago, and everyone went, oh, that's all what we already say, and now we've got to frame it in a different way, and it's just another thing, and we have to get our head around it. And we just did it slowly but surely. We just kind of looked at it. With EYLF, we just sort of said we'll just incorporate a little bit at a time and think of different ways we can use it in our documentation. And so similarly, that's the way we kind of took the approach with the certificate. It is something that we already know. The rating was something we already understood and something that we've been dealing with quite a lot through assessment tools and things. But it was just from a staffing viewpoint, it was really just a different visual for everything else that we were doing, and just kind of like, and I think actually something that came out only recently in our May staff meeting, just within the conversation, it sort of said, actually, this certificate is really kind of like an advocate for our sector, for what we do. It's an advocate for people getting a lot more information about the standards and why they're in place and how they add to the quality of a service and how they actually guide. If you pick it all through, that really outlines all the pedagogy and practice that is within any service. And so it actually, when you start to see it from that viewpoint of the positives and what it can actually bring to the sector, then I think all of that beginning apprehension just disappears. Yeah, well, I think once again, because it's something that's discussed as part of our annual report, so that, I guess, you kind of introduce that immediately for the new committee that for us, our AGMs in March. So that's kind of like very much an introduction to what the preschool is. So it's part of that. So I think the notion of what our rating was not at all a new thing to anybody. But I think raising with them about the actual certificate as opposed to the rating, I think initially there was a little bit of like, oh, well, we knew that, you know, so it's kind of like that. But I guess we, once again, it was about that process of reframing the idea as to saying that, you know, it helps people and to understand why you would choose a certain service. And not that, I don't want it to sound like I'm saying that then we now use this as a bit of an advertising campaign, but it's more that so that people who are starting to try and say choose a service can actually say, oh, actually I know how you can choose that, and they could advise family that are kind of like even in a different area or whatever, go and ask to see their, you know, or look up their certificate, and then you can see where they're going. So I think they started to understand that it was actually a tool for information growth, for learning about, you know, understanding more about what the standards are, what those criteria were actually being rated against, rather than it just being this kind of like, oh, an assessment and ratings, it's out there somewhere and you guys have to worry about that. Like, and also I think it's in our preschool just recently, it's actually had a really interesting impact, which I wouldn't have expected, is it seems like leadership and governance is a lot more on the table, because I think they're saying, hang on, well, that's our thing. We're supposed to be doing a lot of that. So what is it that we're meant to be doing? And I see we've got exceeding in that. So what was happening in the past that we need to make sure we keep doing, you know? And so, and is there anything we need to work on more and things like that? So I think it's actually been a bit of a springboard for conversation, and also I think just when you talk about it as information and knowledge gaining, I think that's been really taken on board. Yep, so this off the back of, that was from our May meeting when, I sort of touched on it in the April meeting, but I said more putting it on the agenda for the May meeting. So at the May meeting, we talked a lot about the certificate, and then in the May newsletter, I put this together. So I used some information from the departmental website, and gave a link just below where you can't actually see it on the screen there, but there was a link to the quality ratings video for services as well. And so this is like the beginning part. So this is just introducing our certificate, and then just kind of explaining a bit of our journey of how we got to there, and just linking into the quality areas. So it's just that beginning introduction. And then I've explained that over the next, we've talked about that, so starting from the June newsletter, then we'll pick up one of the quality areas. And I said by December, we'll have gone through all 7, so that and once again, like Susie mentioned, and also, pretty well everyone's mentioned in all the sessions that you've run, about using photos, because once again, this is about as much writing as you really want people to have to read, particularly in a newsletter. So there'll be pictures, so there'll be little what is quality area 1, and just a few little dot points, and then what it looks like at our service, and then in brief words, and then some nice pictures that will excite, you know, hopefully interest and excite people to read on with the other information. So that's our plan, and I feel like that will make it really a lot more of a living, breathing certificate jumping off the wall rather than just sitting there.